somebody needs to go into detail, because if you just give them the gospel, sooner or later they're likely to think. They might not, but they might think, well, why is that? Why am I believing that instead of, that the kingdom is coming, or, the kingdom is at hand, as I read in Mark 1:14 and 15, that they're going to ask questions, and we need to study ahead of time to have the answers to those questions. And why does it call the dispensation we're in a dispensation of the grace of God, and it also calls it a dispensation of the gospel? That can come into people's heads. Well, it doesn't. They're not the same thing. They're each only mentioned once, and they're consecutive. One is the dispensation of the gospel, explained as the gospel of the gospel of Christ, which Paul says in Romans 1:16 is to the Jew first and also to the Greek. The other is the dispensation of the grace of God, and we're told in Titus 2:11 that the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men. It appears, that's when Paul was sent to all men. So the difference is the recipients, the difference in those dispensations. When it was just during that, 20 years or so, 12 to 22 years, that Paul was going to the Jew first and also to the Greek. Well, if it was during that, it was the dispensation of the gospel. If it was after that, it was dispensation of the grace of God. But, God didn't pull the rug out from under those Jews that did believe, or the ones that he knew were going to believe. When Israel fell by the action of the high priest and the council and the elders and the scribes in Acts 7 stoning Stephen, what is that, maybe 20, 30 people of the hierarchy of Israel? What about all the rest of Israel? They were given a chance to be saved after Israel fell and wasn't a way to God anymore. They could be saved by Paul's gospel. So Paul was given that period to concentrate on the Jews and the Greeks in the synagogues. He didn't have to restrict himself from preaching to alien Gentiles. That's not in that. That's not in the calling or the sending. He could have preached to whoever he wanted to, but his sending, who he's responsible to go to the Lord, he was responsible to go to the Jew first and also to the Greek. During those quarter of a century or so, a little less, fifth of a century maybe. After that, he was released to talk to Jews and Greeks and Spaniards and Arabians and anybody, Russians, Americans, Paltalkians. But before then, that was when he was calling the remnant out of Israel, the remnant into the body of Christ, that would elect grace, elect to be saved by God's grace. During that period, it wasn't called the gospel of the grace of God. It was called the gospel of Christ. It's the same message, though.